I get it. You've been scrolling through endless speaker options, and the idea of dropping a decent floor-standing set into your living room feels both exciting and a little scary. You're probably wondering if you'll end up with a pair that sounds amazing but looks out of place, or worse, one that needs a massive amp you don't have. I'm here to walk through the Acoustics 50/50 floor standers in a way that feels like a friend giving you the lowdown before you spend a chunk of cash. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about what a floor-standing speaker actually does for a typical home setup. In the speaker world, a floor stander is the big boy that handles the full frequency range, especially the low-mid that bookshelf speakers can't really reach. That means you usually need a room that can accommodate a couple of 3-foot-tall cabinets without them feeling cramped, and you'll want an amp that can drive them without breaking a sweat. The 50/50s sit in the sweet spot of that equation. They're tall enough to fill a medium-sized living room, but they're not the towering behemoths you see in high-end audiophile rooms. The first thing that caught my eye on the 50/50 is the C3 continuous curved cone. Acoustics designed that cone to stay stiff and move as a single piece, which translates to smoother mid-range and a more controlled bass punch. In real-world terms, when you fire up a favorite vinyl album, say, some classic rock with gritty guitars and a solid drum kit, you'll notice the guitars sit right in front of you, not buried under a wall of sound, while the kick drum still thumps without rattling the whole wall. That's the kind of clarity you want if you're a movie buff too. Dialogue stays clear even when the action sequences bring up low-frequency rumble. Another practical win is the vibration-suppressing baffle. The cabinet isn't just a box. It's built to dampen resonances that often color the sound. What you'll hear is less of that boxy echo you sometimes get from cheaper floor standers, and more of the music's natural texture. If you've tried setting up a pair of speakers before and found that the room sounded like it had a slight metallic sheen, this design helps cut that down. The tweeter isolation is a detail that matters when you're listening at higher volumes or to detail-rich material like orchestral recordings. Acoustics mounts the tweeter on its own little platform, separate from the main cabinet. In practice, this means the sparkling high cymbals, violins, even the subtle hiss of vinyl stay crisp without becoming harsh. I've noticed that on tracks where a choir lifts in the background, those high frequencies remain airy rather than piercing. Now, the 5050 isn't just about tech. It's also about looking good in the room. They come in 4 finishes, and the Santos Rosewood version gives a warm, wood-grain look that blends nicely with both modern and traditional decor. If your living space already has a bit of natural wood, these speakers can become a subtle extension of that aesthetic rather than a glaring metal slab. That's something you don't want to overlook. Speakers are furniture too, and they'll stay visible for years. Let's get into the practical strengths that matter after you bring them home. First, the point-to-point bracing combined with high-pressure enclosure, HPE, construction does a solid job of keeping the internal panels from flexing under high output. The result? When you crank up the volume for a weekend movie marathon, you won't hear the cabinet's own vibration coloring the sound. Second, the mid-bass performance is surprisingly tight for a speaker that isn't a monster sub. If you pair these with a modest subwoofer, you get a seamless low end that feels cohesive rather than disjointed. Third, the soundstage they create is impressively wide. Even in a rectangular room, you'll get a sense of space that makes you feel like the music is coming from a broader area than just the 2 speakers. On the flip side, there are a few trade-offs to keep in mind. Because the 5050 aims for balance rather than deep bass dominance, they'll need a decent amp that can deliver clean power above 100 watts. If you're currently using a tiny integrated amp that struggles with larger speakers, you might not see the full potential of these Acoustics. Also, while the bass is tight, it's not going to fill a large open-plan living room with the same impact a 6-foot floor-standing model could. If you love that earth-shaking feel from movies or EDM tracks, you'll probably still want a separate subwoofer to hit those frequencies. Finally, the footprint is about 12 inches wide and 18 inches deep, so you'll need to be sure your speaker stands or the floor can accommodate that space without crowding other furniture. Who should buy these? If you're a homeowner or renter with a medium-sized living room, roughly 200,300 square feet, a love for a clean, accurate sound, and a willingness to invest in a decent amp, the 5050s are a great match. They're also perfect for people